Tell you who else is always worth getting to. Peter Cardwell.
Hello there.
He is here, talk presenter, of course, and our political commentator. You've been watching PMQs, Deputy PMQs as it is today, so we don't have to. First of all, we ask you to bring in highlights. Were there any highlights?
Yes, there were. There really were.
You sound jolly happy.
Well, I always like it when Angela Rayner's there because it's nice and punchy.
She is actually rather good fun.
She's a great communicator.
I really liked her when she went up against Oliver Dowden.
Yes.
They actually had a very funny little exchange.
They had a bit of energy, yeah, definitely. Well,
Keir Starmer's still out of the country because he's never here.
Well, he's on a plane as usual. So he's somewhere over the Atlantic at the moment, flying back. But no, he's down to Angela Rayner today.
I tell you what, though, he's getting those air miles up, isn't he?
It certainly is, yes.
I'm going to go on holiday with him at Christmas.
Avios points. He can pay for it with his Avios points. No, so we have Alex Burkhart today. Apparently, exactly. It's going to be a rotating cast of characters, but he is the shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster.
Because basically, when the Prime Minister's not there, the Leader of the Opposition also doesn't do PMQs.
That's right.
It's there, but it's normally their deputy. But Kemi Badenoch has decided
not to have a deputy. So Alex Burkhart's going to do it now, but on future occasions, it might not be him.
Question, and I mean this really nicely about this man. Have you ever seen this man before?
Yes, I know who he is, but that's my job to know. But most people don't. He's very well known within his own family, but otherwise, I mean, what is it about the shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland that you think doesn't fall off people's, trip off the tongue?
He shadowed Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which is what Michael Gove's job was, wasn't it? That's right. So you're basically a very senior Cabinet Office Minister, but you got your fingers in a lot of pies.
A lot of different pies, definitely.
Yes. OK, so what did he ask?
Well, he asked her about farmers. He asked her about farmers, asked her about quite a number of things. There was also a question from another MP in regard to this Stasi-like intervention in non-crime hate incidents. But really, he summed it up very, very well at the end when he said, actually, it's not just about farmers. There are lots of other groups that Labour doesn't like. Let's have a little watch and listen to what Alex Burkhart had to say to the Deputy Prime Minister about what's been happening since the election.
I understand why the Right Honourable Lady doesn't want to answer questions about the terrible choices the government have made. It's because the truth is ugly. The truth is that this is a punishment meted out to people who don't vote Labour. It's the same punishment meted out to parents who send their children to private schools. It's the same punishment meted out to the owners of small businesses terrified about national insurance contributions. And it's the same punishment meted out to pensioners who can't afford to pay their fuel this winter. Isn't it the truth, Mr. Speaker, that if you don't vote Labour, they don't care about you?
Well, Mr. Speaker, after that display, he clearly didn't recognise the result of the general election.
Do you know one of the things that's most notable about watching that clip, those who are watching on YouTube instead of listening, is you got all men on the front bench of the Tory side and a bunch of women, all actually in the same blue jackets, as far as I can tell, on the other side. And again, it's something that Labour are really big on doing, isn't it? Like making sure that you've got a load of women on the front bench. They feel very strongly about this.
Yes, look at us. We've got women, except we've never had a female leader.
Yeah, just by accident. Never happens. Just a coincidence. I don't think it matters at all, but I know that that's what they deliberately do. You mentioned another MP asked
Lee
a
Anderson
lively
of Reform
question.
UK. Now, this is interesting because the exchange between Alex Burkhart and Angela Rayner was good. It was definitely better than last week between Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer. But the question of the day was definitely from Lee Anderson. There are lots of different elements in there. Yes, about farmers, but also about Rachel Reeves' CV. Oh,
let's have a watch and a listen of that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a few weeks ago from that dispatch box, the Minister for Rural Affairs said that he'd been congratulated by a farmer over the introduction of the inheritance tax. Now, I think this farmer must have been a cannabis farmer, because just yesterday we had 10,000 farmers on Whitehall protesting against this madcap decision. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that this decision should be thrown in the trash can along with Rachel from Accounts' CV?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he talks about CVs. It's good to see the honourable member doing well on his bench. Once a Labour councillor, then a Tory MP, and now a Reform Chief Whip. Every time he switches party, he gets a promotion. Mr. Speaker, I've already outlined what we've done to support our farmers, and we'll continue to support the farmers, and we'll continue to invest in our public services to get Britain back on track.
I'd say it was very lively on both sides. Rachel from Accounts, I feel, is going to stick. Let's talk about that, because Rachel Reeves' CV, her background, this was front and centre in the election campaign for Keir Starmer and for her. Look at my wonderful, shadow chancellor. She's an economist at the Bank of England. She worked in banking. She knows her stuff. She's got the credibility. This was a big thing. And now it's turned out that, and she's even changed her own LinkedIn CV. Yes. Well, she did an interview where she didn't seem to know how long she'd worked at the Bank of England, getting it wrong by about 50%. She also claims to have been an economist at HBOS at Halifax Bank of Scotland, as it was then. Turns out she wasn't. She was in an administrative role in a complaints department, we understand. Now, these are the sorts of things that, as many of our guests, including Zia Youssef from Reform, pointed out earlier, if you made such a, quote, mistake on your own CV and your boss found out, you'd be sacked.
Well, and at the questions to the Prime Minister's official spokesman yesterday, I was asked, is this a breach of the ministerial code? No answer came. It was, well, she's fixing the economy, everything's fine. But the fact is that...
But why can't they say... No, because she hasn't lied. That's the only acceptable answer.
Exactly. But, she put information in the public domain that turns out now doesn't seem to be true. And it's not just any old information. It's the fact that, as you say, is the credibility as a Chancellor. Now, we live in a country, unlike others, where you can be Secretary of State for Health without being a doctor, for example. But the point is, as you correctly say, Julia, the point was we were told she was an economist, therefore she will be a really good Chancellor. That now doesn't seem to be the case.
It all explains why she's a really bad Chancellor, then, isn't it? Not that I would have thought that being an economist would make her a good Chancellor. But this whole budget is falling apart, though.
It really is. 3 weeks, and we're still...
It's not quite pasty tax territory from George Osborne, but that fell apart within days. But...
Do you remember the pasty tax when Ed Miliband was leader of the Labour Party, and all he had to do was go to Greggs and get a pasty, and he got a sausage roll? Yeah. Shouldn't be allowed near any pork-based products. Anything that comes from a pig, Ed Miliband just not allowed. We remember the bacon sandwich, but no, this is falling apart. We've got inheritance tax, we've got the winter fuel allowance, we've got school fees, we've got Rachel Reeves' national insurance for employers. There are lots of things. We're still talking about it. We shouldn't be. We should have moved on, according to what Labour say. Nothing to see here, it's all fine. But actually it isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Benedict Spence, we've been talking about a lot of this all day, but do you think that we're going to see Rachel Reeves eventually being sort of pushed aside as a result of this, or is it just the laughter and the mocking is going to continue? And given that Angela Rayner clearly was not, should we say, what's the way of saying, clearly was not completely accurate about where she did or did not live when she was buying and selling her council house. Yeah.
The Housing Secretary.
And here she is as Housing Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, you'd want that person who's particularly skilled at evading answers then to be answering on behalf of Rachel Reeves, who's perhaps a little bit less skilled. I don't think she'll last the full Parliament, Rachel Reeves, but that's not because of this. I think it's probably because the economy isn't going to go gangbusters and she'll need to be reshuffled for a reset at some point. But it'll feed into the sense that she's just not particularly trusted by the public, which will then be amplified, I think, when growth doesn't happen.
And also just not very good.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, just not very good. It's been fantastic. Great highlights there. Thank you very much.